Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 12th April 2026. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers which are relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions which will be useful for your upcoming mains examination. In the analysis section, under our first topic, we will look into various aspects of Uniform Civil Code. After that, in our second topic, we'll try to understand what is the controversy around the special intensive revision done in West Bengal. Thereafter, keeping in mind the upcoming prelims examination 2026, we will discuss 5 important prelims pointers that will be highly useful for your prelims preparation. So, stay tuned. So, let's start our discussion with the first topic, that is Uniform Civil Code. The context of this topic is that Honorable Prime Minister Modi, in one of the election rallies in West Bengal, again backs the implementation of Uniform Civil Code. And this particular topic is related to your GS paper 2, fundamental rights provided under part 3 of the Constitution, directive principles of state policy provided under part 4 of the Constitution, judiciary and Indian Constitution. So what does this mean by Uniform Civil Code? So if we see that in any country generally, there are two types of code. One is the criminal code and second is the civil code. If any person or the different persons belonging to the different religions, if they are doing some criminal wrong or they are committing some crime, so they will be subjected to same code or same law. For example, in India, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or BNS, which replaced IPC, or Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, which replaced CRPC, will be applicable to all the persons irrespective of the religion to which they belong. If there is person A, B and C, all these three belongs to different religions, but if they are committing a crime, let's suppose they are doing murder, theft, anything else, so they will be subjected to these laws. There will not be any differentiation based on the different religion to which they belong. But in the matters of civil, that is the marriage, divorce, maintenance, succession, etc., the different religion have their own laws. There is no uniform civil rights that are covering the civil matters. So that is the reason the Uniform Civil Code actually refers to the common set of laws, uniform set of laws that are actually governing the civil rights of every citizen, the civil matters of every citizen pertaining to marriage, divorce, maintenance, succession, etc. And if you see the timeline of this Uniform Civil Code in India, in 1947, the Uniform Civil Code was sought to be enshrined in the Constitution as a fundamental rights by some of the members of the Constituent Assembly. But in 1948, Article 44 of the Constitution that sets the implementation of uniform civil laws, which is the duty of the state under Part 4. So we have divided rights into Part 3 and Part 4. Under Part 3, we have the justiciable right. And under Part 4 of the Directive Principle of States Policy, we have the non-justiciable right. So initially, it was thought to keep the Uniform Civil Code under the fundamental rights provided under Part 3. But because of the disagreement between the members, ultimately it was kept under the Part 4 of the Constitution. And if you see what exactly Uniform Civil Code focuses on, so it simply focuses on equality principle. For example, in the matters of criminal wrong, the code or the law looks up to everyone with the same lens. So here also it says the Uniform Civil Code says that all sections of society are treated equally. In the civil matters also, irrespective of the religion, there should not be any discrimination based on the religion. And the core premise is that there is no connection between religion and law. There should not be different religion, be it the civil or the criminal, for the people belonging to different religion. Especially in the modern civilization where rationality and scientific temper is of paramount importance. So after in 1948, this Article 44 was kept under Part 4. Subsequently, in 1954, there was this passage of Special Marriage Act that provided for permission of civil marriages above any religious personal laws, that people belonging to different religions can also marry under this particular act. Then in 1956, Hindu Code Bill passed dividing the personal laws in common Indian citizen and Muslim community. In 1986, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's government tried to undo what has been given as a judgment in the Shah Bano judgment. and that further widened the differences in civil rights, that further focused on the fact that there are different civil rights for the women or the persons belonging to different religions. And in 2003, then Honorable President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, further supported the idea of the Uniform Civil Code. And in 2015, Supreme Court asserted the need of the Uniform Civil Code. And if you see the evolution of Uniform Civil Code, what was the issue before 1947? So there was this Lex Loci report of October 1840, which stressed that there is an importance as well as necessity of uniformity in the codification of Indian law relating to crimes, evidence as well as contract. So overall, it focused on the fact or stressed on the idea that there is need of a common civil code. But in Queen's 1859 proclamation, it promised absolute non-interference in the religious matters. And what was the reason? Because during the revolt of 1857, it came to the light to the colonial government that one of the major reason why there has been so much of revolt as well as alienation, the major reason or one of the major reason was the unnecessary or undue interference in the religious and the social matters. That there was certain attempts to infringe the rights of the various people which belongs to different religions. So that is the reason in that proclamation itself, it was stressed that there will be complete non-interference in the religious matter to ensure that there is no further alienation of the Indian citizens that can further lead to a revolution kind of thing in future. So after 1857 revolt, the colonial government also focused on the fact that they should not touch the sensitive matters like social issues as well as the religious issues. The Government of India Act of 1858 also came that provided for the Secretary of State and established the office of the Viceroy of India. And then after the independence in 1947, if you see what was the issue of the Uniform Civil Code, various important members in the Constituent Assembly, for example, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they also pushed for a Uniform Civil Code. Ultimately, it was kept under directive principles of state policy. Now we'll see what are the key judgments related to Uniform Civil Code. The most important is the Shah Bano Begum versus Muhammad Ahmad Khan that came in 1985. And in this particular judgment, the Supreme Court said that the Muslim women are entitled to maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC. The Section 125 of CRPC actually talked about the maintenance of wives, children, etc. So ideally, maintenance is a part of the civil domain. So different religion has the different codes or the laws related to the maintenance. But the Supreme Court said that the Muslim women are also covered under the Section 125 of CRPC, which talks about the maintenance of women. And this particular Section 125 has now become the Section 144 of BNSS. Also, the judgment said that this particular right is applicable beyond iddat period if unable to maintain herself. Iddat period is generally a period of around 4 months, 10 days after the divorce has happened, and during that period, that woman who has gone through the divorce cannot marry any other person. So if she is not able to maintain herself beyond iddat period, still she have the right under the Section 125. And then subsequently, it actually established a secular obligation of husband, that husbands has an obligation, and that obligation is not getting affected because of the fact that one of the husband is belonging to some other religion. And then Uniform Civil Code, which is seeking to eliminate these contradictions in personal laws based on the religion. And with this, there will be the equality, uniformity and the gender justice that will be promoted. Then came Sarla Mudgal versus Union of India case of 1995 that provided for conversion to Islam solely for the second marriage is completely invalid, because some of the religion provide for more than one marriages. But if someone is converting to Islam only for the second marriage, then in that case that is invalid. And first marriage must be legally dissolved, only then they can convert and they can marry to other person. And with this judgment, it was actually preventing the bigamy as well as the misuse of personal laws, where some of the personal laws allows more than one marriage. Then Saira Bano versus Union of India case that came in 2017, that said that the instant triple talaq, that is also called as talaq-e-biddat, is declared unconstitutional, and it says that it is completely violative of Article 14, which provides for equality before law, as well as it is also against the dignity of women. And that ultimately led to enactment of Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act of 2019. So what are the arguments in favor of Uniform Civil Code? The first important is the gender equality. Some of the personal laws in some religions are against the rights of the women, or they provide upper hand to the men members. So if we will have a common civil code or uniform civil code, it will end that practice of the discrimination in the personal laws for the women. And in true sense, women will have a dignified life. For example, the limited rights in the marriage, in the maintenance, etc., that are there in some of the personal laws of the religion, that shows that there is a need for common civil code or uniform civil code. Also, the supporters of the Uniform Civil Code emphasizes on the point that with a common civil code or a uniform civil code, we will have a secular society in true sense, where there will be a complete separation between the state and religion. Also, the law will not be impacted or affected by the religion. So, we will have a common law, and that will help in fostering a secular and inclusive society where everyone, irrespective of the religion, will be equal in front of law. Also, it will provide the legal simplicity. Because of the different personal laws belonging to the different religion, there are a lot of litigations that actually happens. And with the current trend that we are witnessing, where more than 5 crore cases are pending across different courts, be it the subordinate courts, High Court and the Supreme Court, when we have the different personal laws, this further overburdens the judiciary. So if we will have a common civil code and uniform civil code, it will be much easier to interpret the laws and subsequently give the judgments in various matters related to the civil rights of the men members or the female members. So it will also provide the efficient justice system. Subsequently, it will also bring the social justice, that there will be equal legal treatment, that everyone belonging to the different religion will be equal in the eyes of the law. That will be a common law, and this will also eliminate the potential of discrimination. So in true sense, the spirit of the Article 14 will be fulfilled when we will have a common law. Also, it will bring the national integrity. As of now, when we have the different laws, in a way, we have a non-uniform system of the laws, as well as non-uniform system of the different personal laws that are there in different parts of the country. So if we will have the national integrity, so we can say this will show a sign of the modern progressive nation. The nation where the laws are based on rationality, logic. The nation where the every gender, irrespective to which they belong, every gender belonging to the different religion will also be equal in the eyes of the law. So that will also foster a national integrity, that all the states and UTs and all the religions will be completely equal in the eyes of law. But there are certain challenges in the implementation of Uniform Civil Code, that there are several apprehensions of various experts or the stakeholders involved. For example, some people say that it can lead to infringement of religious freedom. For example, Article 25 that provides for right to practice, profess and propagate one's religion. And if the religion of a person is giving certain rights, be it belonging to the personal laws, and if we are compelling that person to follow a common civil code, in a way that person can also say that it is violating my fundamental rights. The second important is the cultural diversity, to which some people say that Uniform Civil Code will be against that cultural diversity. That, for example, in some of the tribal society, there is the matrilineal inheritance system that is there. In some of the societies where the culture or the nature of marriages are different, the maintenance, adoption, divorce, etc., that is also different. The number of marriages that are allowed in different societies, that is also different. So every culture has some of the unique features, and now if we are bringing a uniform or the common civil code, code in a way that cultural diversity will be impacted. Also, it can lead to social disruptions if it is not done in a sound and proper manner. So some people might feel alienated that their religious rights or their rights belonging to their religion has been infringed, and that can lead to the cases of the communal violence also in various parts of the country, and that can create a law and order situation which might be detrimental to overall peace and security of the nation. Also, the complexity of the implementation that are there, that drafting, codifying, as well as harmonizing and rationalizing all the personal laws belonging to different religion can be a time-taking and complex process. And in that case also, it will be very difficult to have a common civil code, and especially in a shorter time frame. Then, more than the laws, for example, you have the Hindu Inheritance Act and various other specific acts that are belonging to the specific religion. So there can be different religions, there can be different personal laws for the different religion. It is not necessary that there is the need of a common civil code itself, only then we can address the discrimination or we can bring the national integrity. This is another argument given by the people who are opposing the uniform civil code. So what should be done? What should be the way forward? First of all, there is need for the consensus building, that all the stakeholders involved in this particular discussion, be it the different religious leaders, be it the non-government organizations, be it the civil society organizations, be it the different state governments, center, be it the legal experts, they all should be consulted properly, and then subsequently we can come with a way forward, and with a proper deliberation in the discussion with the stakeholders involved, we will be able to dismantle or solve whatever the apprehensions they have, and it will be easier for us to implement the uniform civil code in letter and spirit. Also, unity is more than the uniformity. The peace, security, overall economic growth that will be fulfilled by the peace and security, that is more important. The unity of all the states and the union territories and the citizens belonging to these states and union territory, that is more important rather than altogether only having the uniformity. That uniformity will not serve any purpose if we do not have the unity. So unity is paramount, and then subsequently we should keep in mind about the uniformity. So the first thing is the apprehensions and the whatever the concerns other people have, they should be addressed well. Then there is need for striking a balance. For example, we can eliminate only those practices that do not meet the constitutional standards. That if there are certain practices that are not meeting the constitutional standards, for example, if there are some practices that are violating or that are discriminating between two people belonging to different religion, in that case what we can do, we can first of all eliminate those discriminatory practices, and then subsequently I can look up to those other areas, other domains. Also, there can be higher level committee that can be established. For example, there was a committee that was established on one nation, one election under former President Honorable Ramnath Kovind ji. So there can be some high-level committee that can be established in which we can have the eminent jurists, and that will actually help us in bringing some of the innovative solutions with the help of which we can implement the uniform civil code. Also, there is need for awareness and sensitization program of the different people belonging to different religions, so that all their apprehensions can be dismantled, all their apprehensions can be addressed properly, and the way for the implementation of the uniform civil code will be much more peaceful and smooth. A mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic is this, that you can write. Moving towards our next topic, that is, what is SIR controversy in West Bengal? And the context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared covering various aspects of special intensive revision. And this is related to your GS paper 2, Executive Elections, Indian Constitution. So, Article 324 of the Constitution provides the Election Commission of India right of the direction, superintendence and control of the elections. They conduct elections for the parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha elections, the elections for state assemblies, be it the legislative assembly or the legislative council, plus the elections for honorable president and vice president are also conducted by the Election Commission of India itself. Also, the elections for the Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies, they are conducted by the state election commissions, that is your SECs. And Article 324 subclause 1 provides the direction, superintendence and control for the preparation of the electoral roll, which is the voter list. That is the official list of the people who are eligible in any one constituency to cast their votes. For example, whenever you are going to give your UPSC examination, there is an admit card that is issued to you, and that is a proof that you are admitted in that particular examination. If you are not having that admit card, you will not be permitted to give the examination. Similarly, the people who have name in those official list in which the names of the people who are eligible in that constituency are there, only then the people will be able to cast their votes. Also, these electoral rolls are prepared by Election Commission of India under the Representation of People's Act of 1950. And any citizen having the age of 18 years or more than 18 years, they are eligible to vote in that particular constituency. Plus, they should be also ordinarily resident of that particular constituency as provided under the section 19 of the RP Act. And if they are non-citizen or if they are disqualified persons as provided under section 16, so their name may be deleted or excluded from the official voter list. And the main purpose why we are keeping a electoral roll or the official voter list is to ensure that the elections that are going to be conducted, they are free, fair, as well as they are completely transparent. Then the special intensive revision which was being done and which is done in West Bengal also recently, it is a time-bound door-to-door verification by booth level officers or the BLOs. So generally, any constituency is divided into various booths so that it is easy and smooth for the people to cast their votes, because all of the people, if they will be called at any one station to cast their votes, it will take a lot of time. So constituency is divided into different smaller booths, and there are designated officers who help in casting the people belonging to that booth their votes. So there will be the booth level officers or the BLOs which will be in each booth that is the smaller unit of a constituency, and in that booth itself the BLOs will be verifying the names of the person by visiting their homes, and subsequently if the person is ineligible, their names will be excluded, or if any person has attained the age of 18 years, so their names might also be included. So it mainly aims to add new voters who has now become eligible to cast their votes, or delete the ineligible names who, let's suppose someone migrated to some other areas and they have taken the citizenship of any foreign country, or correct or modify entries if there are some issues with regard to the names of the person, date of birth, etc. That can be also modified. It actually ensures that the voter list or the official data related to the voters are accurate, updated, as well as it is error free. And the legal basis for this special intensive revision is provided under section 21 of the Representation of People's Act of 1950. And that provides that Election Commission of India can revise the rolls without any reasons. If you see the judicial stand in Mohinder Singh Gill case of 1977, Election Commission of India has wide powers provided under Article 324 that was said by the Honorable Supreme Court, and said that it can act where laws are silent, because Article 327 provides the power to the Parliament to make laws over the elections, whereas Article 328 provides the power to the state legislature with regard to the conduct of the elections. But if the laws are silent on any matter, in that case Election Commission of India has wide powers. They can take the decisions on their own. Also, judicial interference is limited during the elections, that is provided under Article 329 subclause B. And this flexibility is allowed mainly in the exceptional case. There has been multiple instances where in the past special intensive revision is done. Now, why there is a need for special intensive revision, or what is the significance of SIR? It provides for accurate and updated electoral rolls. For example, it removes ineligible and duplicate voters. So what does the free and fair election means? It simply means that the people who are eligible should get the opportunity to cast their votes, and the people who are ineligible should be excluded from the process. And this is what is being done by the special intensive revision. The ineligible people and the duplicate voters names are being excluded, plus the addition of the new members are also happening. and it mainly helps in correcting the errors that are there, and it helps in preventing the frauds and ensures free and fair elections. Then it also help in reflecting the changing demography. For example, some of the people who have attained the age of the 18 years, so their names will be included, or some person who died, so that adjustment will also be possible with the process of this SIR. And this helps in aligning the roles with the revised constituency boundaries, that if there was some tweak or the changes that were done in the boundaries of the constituency, so that will also be possible by this SIR that will be done. Also, it helps in safeguarding the democratic legitimacy. For example, it upholds the idea that there is one person, one vote. All person, they will be able to cast their vote only one itself. If there will be multiple entries, duplicate entries, so that person might cast their vote multiple times. Also, it eliminates the ghost or the duplicate entries, and that helps in building the trust. For example, if a person knows that his neighbor has names in multiple times in the electoral roll, and he might be casting his vote multiple times, that creates a trust deficit between those neighbors itself. That can be with other sections also. So to bridge that trust deficit, to improve or increase the social capital, this kind of exercise can be very useful. Then enhancing the voter participation. For example, the door-to-door surveys that are done, online registrations that are done, that improves the access of the marginalized groups, where some of the marginalized groups will not be able to leave their daily wage or daily jobs only to get their names corrected in the electoral rolls, or only to get their names registered in the electoral vote, because if they will leave their 1 days of wages, so in the evening they might find it difficult to even have the 2 meals. So with the door-to-door voter participation and door-to-door surveys, it also helps in providing proper inclusion of the marginalized section. Then supporting technology and policy reforms. For example, it enables the digital electoral rules, that the electoral rules will be digital, which will have a better accessibility, and it will also facilitate innovations like remote or the e-voting. For example, Bihar pilot scheme that is provided with the particular app itself. Now, what are the key concerns? Especially the risk of disenfranchisement. That if the exclusion of common IDs like Aadhaar card, ration cards, and these are the major IDs which generally people find it easier to produce. So if they are not able to produce, then they might be disenfranchised. The extra documentation that are required, and with the disasters that keeps on happening. For example, in Assam there are regular floods that comes. In Bihar region also regular floods comes. So people generally migrate for some of the months to other regions, and in that time of the stress, generally they find it very difficult to keep their documents with themselves. So if there is poor documentation, that also mainly affects the poor and vulnerable, where there is risk of disenfranchisement, or these people might be excluded from the official voter list. Then migrant exclusion. For example, they have the difficulty providing residence due to mobility, especially at the place where they are residing. So these migrants might be excluded from the official voter list. Then the stealth NRC fear, that the birth or the legacy documents may act as a citizenship test in future also, that this particular exercise can be one of the base based on which tomorrow the citizenship of the people can also be decided. So some people might lose their citizenship status, and they might have to leave the country. Then discriminatory implementation. For example, there is a risk of the targeted exclusion that harms the representation. There has been various apprehensions and the reports that some of the specific religions, there has been some of the targeted exclusions. There are allegations, not proven, but allegations, and that actually harms the representation of these marginalized groups or other groups. Lack of consultation, that mainly it is a top-down approach, and that is one of the reasons that initially there were limited number of documents which were allowed to be produced to ensure that their names are included. But now that documentation has been expanded. So if we will go from bottom to top approach, then it will be easier for us to have an effective citizen-centric governance, and to also implement the policies or whatever the policy decisions or the norms that are coming from the top. So the top-down approach mainly impacts the illiterate or the homeless voters who are completely excluded.
Now this special intensive revision controversy in the West Bengal, if you see, so it was mainly aimed at removing the duplicate shifted deceased voters, identifying illegal immigrants. That was the case that we have already discussed, and it was conducted in multiple states, but most controversial has been in the West Bengal, because also one of the reason that the elections in the West Bengal is also due, and that also actually led to the trust deficit between the Election Commission of India and the state government of the West Bengal. And this has been also noted by the Honorable Supreme Court while hearing the petition against this exercise. So the scale of deletion, if you see in the SIR, so initial voters was around 7.66 crore, and the draft roll that was prepared in December 2025, 63 lakh names were deleted. Final voters were around 7 crore, and categories were identified as absent, shifted, dead or duplicate. And 30 lakh were the unmapped voters. 1.2 crore were with the logical discrepancy itself. What are the logical discrepancy? That these discrepancies were identified via the AI-based algorithm or AI-based analysis, that if there is spelling mismatches, so then also it will be flagging there is a discrepancy, or if there are some voters which are linked to the same ancestor. For example, if the 6 voters are linked to the same ancestor, that is another discrepancy that has been highlighted by the AI. Age gap between age gaps between a parent and child, that is father and son or mother and son, in some of the cases it is less than 15 years or it is greater than 45 years. So that also creates the problem that how can this be a possibility. The grandparent age are also sometimes less than 40 years. So that also creates the question mark that whether the date of birth that are entered, they are properly verified or not. And gender mismatches has also been there with the name, that some of the person belonging to different genders, their name are kept as some other gender itself. And the result of all this has been that around 1.5 crore cases are flagged. But after the Supreme Court order that there should be some judicial officers who will be again verifying, 60 lakh names were put under the education who are excluded from voting pending their verification that will be done in the dedicated tribunal. And the Supreme Court actually intervened citing deadlocks, and after the efforts of the High Court of the Calcutta, there were 700 judicial officials were deployed based on the order of the Supreme Court, and outcome of that were 27 lakh names were cleared, and remaining can also appeal in the 19 ECI tribunals that are there. But if the decision will not come within few days itself, then these people might find it ineligible, might find it difficult to cast their votes in the upcoming assembly election in the West Bengal. The current status is that the total deletion pre-SIR 25 list is around 90.8 lakh. Eligible voters are 6.77 crore, and many are under education that may miss the upcoming elections. So the civil society also has various concerns. For example, they are having this concern that there has been undue targeting of certain minorities, especially there has been high deletion in some of the districts where the minorities are greater in number. The claims are that it is not revision, but it is the rewriting of the rules that are being done. That whatever the electoral rules are there, we are rewriting it, that the numbers the names which are eligible, they are also allegedly being deleted. Women voters also are disproportionately affected. So that also jeopardizes their rights, political rights to cast the votes. The major issue is the data accuracy versus the voter exclusion. That if we are going with the strict norms with regard to the checking of the various documents that are there, and then in that case to bring the accuracy in the electoral roll, some of the voters might be excluded, and there can be some of the genuine cases who might have lost their documents because of which they will find it difficult to produce, and then they will be excluded. Technology versus ground verification gap, that in several kind of cases where the AI algorithm has highlighted the discrepancy. So in that case, there has been absence of the ground verification. That is also creating the concern, or that also puts the question mark on the process. The federal tensions, that since the SIR exercise started, there has been the tensions between the constitutional body like Election Commission of India and the state government of West Bengal. Also, the electoral integrity versus the political bias perception, that to bring the integrity in the process of the elections, there has been allegations of the political bias. So all this can be addressed very well if we will try to follow some of these measures. For example, inclusive documentation can be done that allow Aadhaar for the residency, not for the citizenship, that to show that some person is the resident of that particular place, Aadhaar can be accepted. Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship, but this can be the proof of the resident, so that can be accepted because most of the population is having the Aadhaar. So in that case, it will be easier for the settlement of the claims of the people. And we can also use multiple proofs, plus there can be regular cross verifications that can be also done. So if there will be a diversified and comprehensive documentation, so in that case some of the genuine concerns can be addressed. Then robust verification. For example, after the booth level officials verification, there can be periodic audits that can be done, and there can be mandated audits that can be done. There can be safe Aadhaar and voter ID linking, that is also the future thought that can be done. Stakeholder consultation. For example, we can engage the political parties and civil societies for the implementation of this. There can be awareness on the rules and the deadlines also, that will help in addressing the apprehensions. The legal safeguards, for example, there can be clear electoral role related guidelines, judicial oversight mechanism, that this process can be properly monitored by the judiciary to ensure that whatever the concerns are there, they are addressed in a time bound manner. Technology safeguards, that whatever the data that we are getting or whatever the audits that we are doing, we can use the technology to actually detect any kind of contradiction or anomaly that can be there, and that can be detected and that can be tackled in an effective manner. Also, whatever the blockchain locks are there, real-time tracking can be there with regard to the data. There can be some of the measures for the inclusivity. For example, special camps can be set up for the migrants, disabled and the tribals, so that these people also gets an opportunity to ensure that their names are included in the final electoral roll. And there can be multilingual helplines, customer support, etc. that can be also provided to look up to the apprehensions of the people. And there can be post-revision surveys that can be done also at the later part to ensure that all the concerns are being addressed in an effective and time-bound manner. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards our prelims pointers section, the first topic is non-banking financial companies and the new norms for the non-banking financial companies, which is related to your GS paper 3, banking sector and non-banking financial companies and monetary policy. And this has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 13. So what exactly is a non-banking financial company? This is a company that is registered under the Companies Act of 1956, and they are engaged in the financial activities, but they are not licensed as a bank. So the permitted activities for the non-banking financial companies are there, that they can extend the loans and the advances. They can also invest in the shares, stocks, bonds, debentures and government securities. Stocks are the equity instruments that provide ownership in a particular company. Bonds are the debt instrument, that is the liability of any company that is issuing the bond. It provides regular coupon payment generally. Also debentures, these are also the debt instrument, but these are unsecured kind of instruments. Bonds are properly backed by the collateral, whereas debentures are not backed by the collateral. Both are debt instruments, but generally bonds are low risk, low return kind of instrument, whereas the debentures are high risk and high return business. Since they are unsecured, they are not backed by the collateral, they offer higher rate of interest, so that people are motivated and interested to invest in the debentures. Then leasing and hire purchasing, insurance and chit fund business, all these are the activities that are permitted for the NBFCs. Some of the excluded activities are there, that they cannot have their principal business as agriculture, industrial activities, trading in goods except securities, provision of non-financial services, purchase, sale or construction of immovable property. Also, NBFC as part of the financial system, that NBFCs are not part of the traditional banking system, but they operate within the broader financial system that is regulated by the RBI. A company is generally classified as an NBFC if their financial assets are greater than the 50% of their total assets, and income of the financial asset is greater than 50% of gross income. A company is classified as NBFC if financial assets are greater than 50% of total assets, and income from financial assets are are greater than 50% of gross income. Also, most NBFCs are regulated by RBI. Some of them are regulated by sector-specific regulators such as SEBI, merchant banking companies, etc. And if you see that the major difference between the banks and the NBFCs is that the banks can accept the demand deposits, that is in savings and current accounts, whereas the non-banking financial companies, they cannot accept demand deposit. They can accept only the time deposit, and that too in some of the cases only some of the NBFCs are permitted to accept the time deposits. Okay, demand deposit is something that we are saving in our savings account or the current account, that can be directly or at any time it can be demanded by the customer itself. Time deposit, that is generally fixed for a time period. Okay, for example, the fixed deposits, etc., they are the example of the time deposit. Banks, they are part of the payment and settlement system. They can issue checks, they are drawn on themselves. The NBFCs are not part of the payment and settlement system. They cannot issue checks drawn on themselves. Deposits that are kept under the banks, they are insured under the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation, and that is up to a prescribed limit, that is around 5 lakh rupees at present time. Whereas there is no deposit insurance that is available to non-banking financial company depositors from the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation. The banks are required to maintain the CRR with the RBI, SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio, with themselves. CRR must be kept completely in the cash, whereas SLR can be kept in cash, gold, as well as in the government securities. And this is prescribed by the RBI, and time to time it is also rationalized. Whereas the reserve requirements is not there with the non-banking financial companies with regard to CRR and SLR. The banks are also regulated under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949, whereas NBFCs are regulated primarily under the Companies Act of 1956, as well as the RBI regulations that are specific to non-banking financial companies. FDI also is permitted up to 74% in the private sector banks, subject to the conditions, whereas FDI is permitted up to 100% under the automatic route, subject to whatever the sectoral regulations are there. So earlier, the classification of the NBFCs were based on a lot of factors, for example, size, leverage, interconnectedness, etc. But now the NBFC classification is mainly based on the asset size, that any NBFC will belong to the upper layer of the NBFC. There are different layers that are decided for the NBFCs, and this layer is mainly based on the asset size. What is the assets of the NBFCs? So the upper layer classification is for those financial companies having the asset size of greater than or equal to 1 lakh crore. And this is actually replacing the top 10 size method that was earlier there, parametric scoring model that was earlier there. And this actually aims to bring more transparency, simplicity, as well as objectivity, which will be based on only one fact, that is asset size. And this particular approach shift the earlier multi-factor approach of size, leverages, and interconnectedness. And the implications of this particular norm is that there will be a complete regulatory clarity. It will be possible to regulate them properly. Uncertainty on the listing remains, and it may trigger the strategic shift in the large non-banking financial companies with regard to the way they are functioning. Moving towards our next topic, that is Claude Mythos. This is related to your GS paper 3, Science and Technology, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 12. So Anthropic is a US based company that is developing various AI systems, and United States also used Anthropic AI systems in defense. For example, this was used by US possibly in Venezuela. It was also used in the recent war that was going on between Iran on one side and Israel and United States on another side. So they have also developed another system, that is your Claude Mythos. That is the advanced AI cybersecurity system, and that is capable of detecting software vulnerabilities, that if there is a software which is vulnerable to some kind of attacks, so it can detect that properly, and in a time-bound manner that vulnerability can be addressed. Also, it can identify the cyber threats and the exploits that can come, and in future we can probably mitigate that. Also, it has discovered thousands of vulnerability across different operating systems like Windows, etc. Web browsers that are there. For example, you have the Google Chrome, Opera, Firefox, Safari, etc. Also the enterprise softwares that are built by a specific venture or enterprise itself, there are certain vulnerabilities that make them susceptible to certain kind of attacks. So that has also been highlighted by the system. The major features of this model is that it uses large AI models that are trained on extensive code bases as well as system level data. For example, if you see whatever the AI systems are there, for example, ChatGPT or this Gemini or the DeepSeek, etc. If you compare their responses in the earlier phase and compare their responses in the present time, they have significantly improved. Even for your preparation, the overall responses has improved significantly because they are learning from the extensive data which is constantly being fed to them. Let's suppose they have given you a response, but you are giving a feedback on them. You are giving a feedback to them that your response should be like this. You have actually done this particular mistake. So for the next time that AI model is learning that I should not commit this particular mistake. So whatever they are detecting, they are learning, and if they are not able to detect, they are learning for the next time. And it can actually simulate certain attacks. It can also predict the exploit pathways that they can themselves tell that this can be one of the ways by which your system, your software or your browser can be attacked. And similarly, we can go for the mitigation adaptation measures to tackle that in future. They can also detect if there are some previously unknown flaws in that particular system, and it is more autonomous and reasoning capable than the earlier tools. Why there has been the limited rollout? Because there is this high risk dual use technology. For example, it can be used for the defense also, for the security testing, and for the offense also, for the cyber attacks. That either some of the people can use this for the cyber attacking, or they can be also used to preventing that. So risk is that if it will go into some nefarious hands, so this can also lead to weaponization by the malicious actors, and large scale cyber vulnerability exposure can also be there, and that can jeopardize the overall security. So implications are that there should be, this all actually marks the shift towards the AI driven cybersecurity. Earlier we have the different antivirus softwares, etc., that were there in place, but now this AI driven systems will be there that will be directly helping in detecting and as well as preventing the cyber attacks. And that actually raises concerns for AI misuse in cyber warfare, that it can be used for preventing, but this can also be used for attacking in the case of the cyber crimes. And that is the reason it brings towards the fact that there is need for the global AI governance and safeguards. For example, the MANAV, which was the acronym which was also given by our Honorable Prime Minister during the recent AI summit, that the AI should be equitable, it should not discriminate between people. So that also, it should also be accountable, that should be kept in mind. Also, Anthropic's approach has been recently that they launch via the controlled program, as an access is limited to only the trusted researchers as well as security experts, to ensure that it is not going into the malicious hands, and focus is on responsible deployment as well as risk assessment before scaling or before releasing it in the commercial space. So that was all about the Claude Mythos. Moving towards our next topic, that is Windfall Tax, which is related to GS Paper 3 fiscal policy, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 13. So what is Windfall Tax? This is a temporary tax on abnormal profits due to the external factors, for example war, price shocks, but not due to their own efficiency. And this is levied on the unexpected or excess profits that are above normal levels, and this is triggered by certain external events. For example, recent supply chain disruptions which we have seen, especially after the Israel, US and Iran war started. This led to a very high increase in the crude oil prices, and because of that, the oil marketing companies which were already having the high level of, or the high storage of the crude oil, because of increase in the crude oil prices, the diesel and petrol prices will increase, but because of the earlier storage that they have done, there can be a significant increase in the profits that they will be making. So this particular kind of windfall tax can be levied on these companies, and this is generally levied as an additional special excise duty, and this is temporary and dynamic where the rates may be revised frequently. The major aim or the objective of going with this to capture the economic rents, also to increase the government revenue during crisis, also to ensure the equitable distribution of gains, as well as to protect the consumers directly. That is the main aim of this particular windfall tax. Our next topic is UIDAI and Aadhaar, which is related to GS paper 2, government policies and interventions and e-governance. This has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 10. So, Unique Identification Authority of India is a statutory body established under Aadhaar Act of 2016, and it actually come into force on 12th of July 2016. And earlier it was an executive body since 2009 under the Planning Commission. It got its statutory status in 2016. It comes under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Headquarters is in New Delhi. And the main functions of UIDAI is the Aadhaar generation, that it issues a 12-digit unique identification number, that is the proof of resident, not the proof of citizenship. And this is based on the biometric details, the fingerprints, iris, etc. of the people, plus the demographic data. And it also provides the authentication services that provides online identity authentication through the biometric authentication, OTP-based authentication. It also helps in identity and data management. For example, it maintains the central identities data repository, ensures data security and encryption privacy protection. It also enables the service delivery, that it facilitates the targeted delivery of the subsidies and benefits, especially the direct benefit transfer. For example, the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi that provide an income support measure to the farmers, all the farmers owning the land itself. Earlier it was only for the farmers having the less than 2 hectares of the land. There are some exclusion criteria that are applicable under the PM Kisan. For example, current or past owners of the constitutional post holders. So Aadhaar is a 12-digit unique identification number issued by the Government of India. All residents of India, including the children or other gender like transgenders or the different abled people, they can get the Aadhaar. And the benefit is that it is valid all over India as a proof of identity as well as a proof of address. It can help in opening bank account, getting mobile connection, availing the LPG as well as the LPG subsidy like Pahal. And if you see that there was a verdict that was also given on Aadhaar, on the validity of the Aadhaar Act. So Supreme Court said that Aadhaar has to be linked with the PAN and ITR. Aadhaar is not mandatory for the school admissions. Aadhaar is still mandatory to avail the welfare scheme benefits, for example PM Kisan or other benefits that are being given to the citizens. Aadhaar details cannot be disclosed in the name of national security. Aadhaar is also not mandatory for opening a bank account. You don't have to provide Aadhaar for a mobile connection. eKYC using Aadhaar is not mandatory for the mobile wallets. Individuals can also file a case under the Aadhaar Act. Aadhaar is not mandatory for examinations that are conducted by CBSE, UGC or NET. Children cannot be denied benefits for the lack of the Aadhaar card. This has been the major highlights of the verdict by the Supreme Court while looking up to the constitutionality of the Aadhaar Act. And this was one of the questions that was asked in 2018, that Aadhaar can be used as a proof of citizenship or domicile. That was incorrect. It cannot be used as a proof of citizenship. And once issued, Aadhaar number cannot be deactivated or omitted by the issuing authority. That was also incorrect. The correct answer was D, neither 1 nor 2. Another question that was asked in 2020. You people tell me the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Our next topic is Kuno National Park, and the context of this particular topic is that the India's cheetah reintroduction program reached a new milestone on Saturday when a female cheetah born inside the country delivered 4 cubs in the wild at the Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. And this is related to GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, and this has also appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 10. So Kuno National Park is in Madhya Pradesh itself, and it is positioned on the Vindhyan Hills near Rajasthan border, and the park's terrain includes plateaus, ridges, grasslands, and that is influenced by the arid vegetation. and it is bisected by Kuno River, supported by 33 mammals, 206 bird species and reptiles such as Indian pythons. And the second home of the cheetah where they will be reintroduced is the Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, that is again on the northern border of Mandsaur and Neemuch districts. It is the second home for the cheetahs in India after Kuno National Park. It is a vast open landscape with the sparse vegetation and rocky terrain. Small patches of dense forest are there. Chambal River is near this particular Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. If you talk about the flora or the tree species, it is Salai, Kardhai, Dhavda, Tendu, Palas, etc. And the fauna or the animal species are Chinkara, Nilgai, Sambar, etc. are the animal species in this Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. There are also various tiger reserves in Madhya Pradesh. For example, Panna, Sanjay Dubri, Bandhavgarh, Kanha, Pinch, as well as Satpura Tiger Reserve, which is there in Madhya Pradesh. That is all from this particular discussion. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.